trial. For the first 30 days, we have a credit that we can use up in these days. In my case, $400. And now we want to see how we can monitor the cost. To do this, we need to have the role account admin selected, or another role that we have created apart from those default roles that have sufficient privileges. In our case, it should be the account admin. So we need to select it, and then afterwards we can navigate to the admin section, and in here under cost management, we can have a look at the cost. So in here you can see immediately that at the top corner there is this warehouse, and this will be spinned up automatically because we also need to have a warehouse that is used to generate the data and run the underlying queries to get this data, so to get the understanding of the cost management. So there are also some queries that need to be run. So if you have some message that you need to select a warehouse, you can also select it. Just make sure that you are selecting a small warehouse because we of course want to save cost, and we don't need to have a lot of compute power to do this. So what we see in here is, first of all, in the account overview, the amount that we have spent in some very easy metrics. So you can see for the selected period, I have just selected the last 7 days. I can see the amount I have spent and also the amount of credits that I have used. So since we pay, in our case, $3 per credit, we can see that this is actually the amount. And then this is also broken down on a daily basis for the credits and the amount. Additionally, we also have the overview over the top warehouses. So this is also a good overview. And then there's also this warehouse that is not created by us, but this is the cloud services only, which basically is a dedicated warehouse for the cloud services layer. So this is just used for administrative tasks like metadata management or authentication. And this is, something that is outside of the warehouses that we have created. And then also we see here the data by the storage. So of course we also have storage cost. And here we just see the most expensive queries. And then if we want to dive a little bit deeper from here, we can go into the consumption. And again here we can filter it of course by the date, and also we can do it by the usage type. So we can break it down by the main categories of cost: compute, storage, and data transfer. Also, if we have multiple accounts, which can be possible, and we are the org admin, we could also see the other accounts. In our case, this is probably not the case. And now, if we select our specific account, we can see more detailed information. So first of all, what I want to select is under all usage types, I want to select first compute. This is again the most important category because usually this is where most of the costs are occurred. And if we select compute, you can see that we have even now more filters. So you can see we have tags, which we talk about in a second. And then we have also all services, and then also all resources. So you can see here under all resources, we just see the resources, basically in this case, all of the warehouses that are consuming credits. And in the same way, we can also filter this view by those different types, so by those different categories. And here we have services, resource, and type. And I know in the beginning this might seem a bit confusing, so we don't want to spend too much time on it, but I just very briefly want to mention that by service is just separating the resource consumption into warehouse consumption and consumption by each serverless feature. For example here, warehouse metering that we can see if we hover over here is just representing the credits that are consumed by the warehouses that we have created. So this is all that we have. And then we would have also later on with the feature Snowpipe, the pipe. So here we would see pipe, and this is just a serverless feature that is used for Snowpipe to continuously load data. But again, we don't need to dive into too much detail in here. And then we also have type, which sounds a little bit similar, but this is just separating the resource consumption in a different way. So it is basically separating it into compute, which we can see if we hover over here. So it is compute, and this is basically both the virtual warehouses that we have created, all of them that we can see in here, and also the serverless resources. So this is just combined. And then also on the other side, we have cloud services. So you can see in here cloud. This is the cloud services layer where we have also the consumption that you can see in here. So again, this is for the administrative tasks where we have the cloud services layer. And then we can also, of course, filter that up here. So we can say we want to filter by specific resources, and we can also, of course, filter it by day, or if we have more data, also by other periods. And also now we want to talk about the tags, because this is a relatively new feature, and we can also see that in here in our resources. And tags, again, we don't want to dive into all of the details, but this is just in general. In other cloud providers, we also have those tags, and basically this helps us to categorize our cost, and we can set up our own categories. So a tag is just a key value pair. This means we can set up a key, for example, department, and then a value, for example, it can be sales or marketing or maybe analytics team. And like this, we can create our own categories, and we can view the costs based on our own categories. For example, we could say we have the environment, test environment, and also maybe productive environment or development environment. And like this, we can apply multiple tags to our resources if we have sufficient privileges to do this. And then we can break down the costs by those categories. So this helps just with the cost management. Additionally, we not only have, of course, the cost, but also we have the storage. So we can also see that in here. And we can see the cost is again broken down by different categories, and we don't need to dive into that also now. For now, just we see those different categories, and we talk about those features as well later on. For example, failsafe is just some data protection feature in Snowflake that is protecting data basically from something like a system failure or something like this, to protect our data from being lost. So something that we talk about later on as well. But here we just see how the data is broken down, basically also by the different objects in here. And again, we can also filter it by day and so on, by the object and so on. This can also be done in here. And then lastly, we also have the data transfer. So in here, we know that we are also charged for the data that is transferred into our account. We are not charged. So we are only charged for the data that is transferred out of the account or to another region. And this could be then seen also in here. So of course, we also have this data transfer cost, which can be also viewed in here. And we could also break it down by the region and so on. So this could also be done in here. All of the other filtering methods like the date range and so on. So here we can get an overview. And then we also have these resource monitors, which also help us to monitor the resources of specific objects, of specific warehouses. How this exactly works, we now want to have a closer